Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to What University, What Career Live Access for All. Thank you for joining us at this session called Coping with Moving from School to Uni, where we're hoping to give you some really useful hints and tips to help you manage that transition from school or college into a university atmosphere. I'm joined by two lovely panelists. So we're going to kick off by asking them to introduce themselves, and then we will launch into the session. So John, if you could start, that would be great.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming along to this session. My name is John Harrington and I'm the Head of Accessibility and Inclusion here in Aberystwyth University in sunny West Wales. And as you can see from the background there, we do have a lot of sun, although I will admit that was possibly taken last summer. But we had some lovely blue skies this morning. And accessibility and inclusion is there to support students who have a disability, a health-related issue, or perhaps from an independent student background, or any other issue where we'd be able to help put in place the support in their studies.
Perfect. And Rhys?
Hello everyone, so my name is Rhys Phillips. I'm the Senior UK Student Recruitment Events and Inquiries Manager at Solent University. My role is I basically lead the team that works with schools and colleges throughout the UK in order to promote both the university itself, but also the university experience to all, and the benefits of studying higher education, or to talk to students who might need support with their personal statements or support with the general application process, just try to make it as smooth as possible. Prior to working in the HE sector, I was actually a FE lecturer, so I worked in a sixth form college teaching history for 7 years. So I also worked with a range of 16 to 18-year-olds when they were considering their own options at that level as well, and supported them on that journey. So coming at it right across the spectrum.
Perfect. It sounds like you've both got some really interesting insights to offer. So let's get started. The transition from to university from school can be a little bit challenging. It's definitely very different. Could you just give us a bit of an insight into what students can expect? Rhys, let's start with you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I think when thinking about how it differs, university, how it differs from either school or college, depending on the route that you're coming from, what I would say the two kind of main areas focuses on flexibility of the course, but also the independence with learning. And those are the two main differences. And I think different students, in all seriousness, adapt to it in different ways. So some are able to kind of hit the flexibility of learning. So with regard to, certainly when I used to teach A-level, we had, set curricula, and there was some flexibility within what we were able to talk about, but effectively there was a set curriculum from Pearson or whoever it might have been, where you had to kind of make sure you were ticking off these select points so that you could be examined by the end of the year. Whereas what you'll find at university is that, to use the example of a history degree, even though we don't do history at Solent, I should have chosen a slightly more Solent and explicit example, but every university is going to offer a slightly different version of that course. So, if you think, I'll take something like media studies as an example. There is no universal media studies degree. Every university will offer their own specific modules and, ways of learning that are bespoke and unique to that university based on the experience of the academics that you have teaching you. And, we might have some people on the call thinking about studying medicine and thinking, well, how much can a medicine degree differ? Well, actually quite a lot. Even though the actual course itself might need to be core accredited modules, you actually have universities really differ in terms of their learning styles, even for something like medicine, with some going for, a much more kind of integrated approach, get you into hospital placements very quickly. Others will have, 2 or 3 years very intense in the classroom before going out on placement. So it's really worth, when you come to choose your university, actually have a look at the way that things are taught and the flexibility that you're going to have in terms of what you're studying. And then I mentioned about independence as well, and university. And again, this can be a blessing or a curse depending on how you kind of feel about it. But university does afford you a lot more independence, both the way that you learn, all right, in terms of going to whether it be lectures or seminars, or whether it be online learning, whether it be quite intense 1 and 2 2-on-1 sessions with academics, whatever it might be. You effectively, it's the onus is very much on you to turn up for that. But in a similar way, you have a lot more independence when it comes to what you are interested in. So once you've chosen those specific modules, you might have particular areas within those areas of study that you want to explore a little bit more. So, for those of you interested in English, you might have a kind of love for 18th century romantic fiction, all right? And if that's the thing that you want to do, as long as you can kind of tie that into your units when it comes to kind of larger projects, you can absolutely fill your boots and kind of really craft that kind of course based on your own individual areas. So yes, it is massively different, but it's also really exciting and really interesting. I'll stop talking there because I think John probably wants to come in as well.
Yeah, favorite subject. It's always a good thing. John, over to you.
Well, I guess you've hit the nail on the head there, Reece. And I think the way that I'd see it is that schooling is a little bit like, if you ever done skiing, you're sticking to the slopes and you're guided along that pathway. Whereas, you learning and studying at university is going off piste. It has got a structure to it, but you're given an opportunity to explore your subject in whichever path you want, and you're encouraged to. It's all about this independent learning. But also, it can be a little bit daunting. You're going to come into this, you're used to one way of learning. It's changing that focus on how you learn. Now, we in universities are able to help you with that. So, and we'll talk about that I think in a little while's time. But the other thing is that independent living. So you're going to be living the whole range of ways up until now. It's probably fairly structured. You have an opportunity by coming to university to live your life as the person you want to be in life, whether that be the person you want to be in relation to the expression of study, of education, or whether it's just you just being who you want to be, with a whole range of ways of living your life. This is your opportunity to express yourself. So yeah, I'm very excited for you all, actually.
I'm a bit jealous too, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's start by then just focusing on the academic side of things. Obviously, one of the things that students can be a bit concerned about is the step up from an academic perspective. Are you able to just to give a little bit more information about the support that is available to students if they find some of their course material a little bit challenging, where they can go for extra support and guidance? And perhaps, John, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, and I think that, as we've said, it's going to be different. And most university modules, especially in your first year, if you're coming in at undergraduate level, there's a real focus in those first few weeks of landing you effectively on your course. So every course is structured to give you a guide on how to be a university student who is going to learn independently. So you won't just be thrown straight in the deep end. Your modules and your academic staff will be guiding you through the best way to learn in higher education. On top of that, all of you will be given a personal tutor or somebody in your academic department who you could turn to. They will be knocking on your door, not literally, on your virtual doors to say, come and see me. It'll be for you to then reach out and just take up their offer of going in to see your personal tutors. They're going to be your best friends for the rest of the 3 or 4 years, or however long you're going to study, because they're going to give you a reference in 3 or 4 years' time as to what an amazing scholar you were and what brilliant career prospects you're going to have. So stay in contact with your personal tutors is a big, big tip there. But yeah, on top of how they will be able to help and guide you through your studies, you'd also, at Aberystwyth University, we have some academic skills modules that are the optional modules, that if you're finding you're struggling, there is a team of people who can keep you on track. You also be able to get some help and support from peers, whether it be a peer guide scheme that you might have in your department at the university you go to, or some sort of peer mentoring program. But the key thing, the other thing I would mention, being an accessibility advisor, is that if any way and where along your learning journey throughout your school, college, you've had some help or support, whether that be through a disability or a neurodiverse learning difference or a health-related issue, please tell us on your UCAS form, or tell us before you arrive, because we will then be able to reach out to you to help you put in place any of those support needs that you may have. So those reasonable adjustments you might have had, extra time in school for exams, somebody to see if you're in trouble with your studies or need a little bit of help and support. If you let us know, we'll be able to replicate that through our support systems. And that'd be any university you go to have a disability team or accessibility team who'll be able to help and support you if you are particularly struggling with any of your learning because of a learning difference or disability.
Absolutely. Reece, it would be great to get your insights on this too.
Well, I mean, to be honest, just to really echo what John was saying there, you know, gone are the days where you were dropped off on the first day of term and it was a kind of best of luck, you know, I hope you graduate in 3 years. You know, university is, it's very much, you know, dedicated now to getting students through the program. At Solent, we have a kind of area of support called the Student Hub, you know, which is kind of like our one-stop shop for all manner of, you know, whether it be kind of learning support needs or financial requirements. You know, the support packages are there to get students through. And I think, you know, there is a version of Solent, so the Student Hub, you know, in every institution. I mean, I've worked, I think this is my third university that I've worked in now, and every, you know, one of those has had their own version of the same, you know, student support areas. So whilst we completely acknowledge that it is challenging and it can be very daunting, especially if, yeah, as John was saying, if you do have, you know, sort of learning support needs, you know, you feel like you've required support throughout your level 3 study, so, you know, BTEC, A-level, T-levels, you're coming into university and thinking that that support net isn't there. You know, it's absolutely not the case. All right, you will be supported. There are entire teams at every institution that are there to support you in order to get you to not just get you through, but, you know, to really help you succeed, to help you thrive within this environment. You know, and you know, higher education really is for everybody, and I think that's certainly in the last 10 years, if not the last 20 years, is something that's been, you know, really kind of ingrained and built, you know, within the sector. So yeah, you are within safe hands, I promise. There's
a really key theme there, that the support for students is there, but perhaps I guess the change from moving from school to university is you have to be a little bit more proactive in going out and seeking it. So whereas where John said making sure that you keep in touch with your personal tutor, I think it's exactly the same with all support services.
The other thing to mention,
the
other thing I can just mention quickly there, Sarah, is that don't assume that extra time is going to be in place when you transition from school, college into university. We will need to, and you will need to work with your university to ensure that's in place. But if you contact them early as possible, they can make sure that is in place, and they just have perhaps send them a few documents and just check in with you what that support's going to be.
Absolutely. So sometimes you realise a course is not for you once you've already started it. It's one of those things that happens. If a student feels like they've made the wrong course choice, what can a university do to help? And Reece, let's start with you.
Okay, so I think this is definitely one of those questions where every university is probably going to be slightly different, but there will be some kind of key points that do overlap, you know, within most institutions. So the general rule of thumb is if you have started a program and you realize completely 100% this is not for me, you usually have roughly sort of 6 to 8 weeks with some flexibility where you can transition into other programs, providing you meet the same entry requirements, or you're able to kind of demonstrate the interest and aptitude to go into that subject. It can be a little bit trickier if you sort of decide, you sign up for a performing arts course and then decide to try and transition into mechanical engineering. That could be slightly more problematic. However, going from performing arts to musical theatre is not so much of a problem. So there is obviously that flexibility there. And I think most institutions, like I said, will have a sort of similar safety net in place. The other point that I will make is that sometimes, and it does fit within the theme of the discussion, is that actually some students will go to university and they feel that it's not for them because it is such an incredibly overwhelming experience all of a sudden, especially if it's the first time that you're living away from home, first time, like I said, being given a huge amount of independence in terms of your study. If you've had to request some of those support mechanisms to be put in place as well, it can be quite overwhelming, I think, within the headspace to be able to kind of do all of that at once. So I think what sometimes happens, and I'm not saying this is a general point, is that sometimes students feel like they're on the wrong program because everything else is slightly challenging. And what will help in that instance is, as John mentioned earlier, you do have academic support teams, all right, within whether that be within course or whether that be within the actual university itself. And I think it's always worthwhile, as a first port of call, at least speaking to, whether it be your personal tutor, whether it be academic support lead, whether it be somebody within the department who is kind of tasked with looking after student welfare, to actually sit down and discuss a little bit about what it is that isn't quite going right with the program and why you feel that you might want to change. Because just sort of in my current capacity, I speak to loads of student ambassadors that have said, when I started my course, actually I really didn't know if I liked it or not, and I thought about changing, but in the end actually stuck with it and found that it did become the program that they wanted it to be. It was just, everything and anything all at once, can be quite difficult to manage. But as I say, there is the ability to change programs if that's something that you decide to do. And also a lot of institutions as well, it's where I say about that kind of general 6-week rule that will often be extended, again, if you're kind of working in a particular area of a subject, and decide that actually your interests lie in another area of the subject. So for example, maybe you've started on video game design, but actually your love is computer game art. All right, you will be able to transfer way into your second year with that. If modules are similar, if modules are being accredited for the same course, again, every university, every course is going to be a little bit different. There is actually a huge amount of flexibility there.
Really good point. And John, what's it like at your university?
Nothing much to add to that, other than there is a time limit, and the variation in when that time limit is a cut-off point just change between universities. So check beforehand. But as we said, as long as there is a similarity in the study type, it's usually possible. But just also to know that actually, as you go in, your first year is fairly structured and introductory. As you go into the second and third year, you're going off piste even more, and you can take your study in whichever direction you want to some extent within the course modules that are available. But you have choices. So yeah, you'll find a path, don't worry.
Absolutely. So for many students, it will be their first time living away from home. This can mean juggling finances for the first time, managing their own money and other things that students won't be used to. Do you have any tips on how to prepare for that? And Reese, let's start with you.
It's a challenging question, because if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't think I was particularly brilliant at this when I was a student myself. So, I feel slightly hypocritical kind of coming in and saying, right, these are the things that you must do 100%. I mean, so I lived in my first year of university, I lived in a shared halls. So we shared a kitchen, and actually within the first couple of weeks, we kind of quickly got into a bit of a routine in terms of how we would cook and live together, and actually pooled resource within that area, which actually helped quite a lot, because you soon find that everybody is, again, it's the first time you're living away from home. So partly you're trying to manage a budget, and on the other hand, you're suddenly have a huge amount of independence over your own finances and are trying not to, spend it all at once, or at least that was my experience. So, I mean, first of all, I would say make the most of your living arrangements, whatever they happen to be, and try and make them work for yourself. What I would say is, again, I mean, I went, embarrassing to admit, but I went to university nearly 20 years ago, all right? So things have changed quite a bit. When I was talking about the Solent Student Hub earlier on, as well as the academic support, there is also financial support, all right? And you have advisors that work within those hubs that can help you manage your money, all right? If you are struggling to budget, they are there to help you work out what you need for your rent, what you need for your general food, mobile phone contract, whatever it happens to be, all right? There are teams, again, every university, I promise you, will have a version of this where they will be able to sit down and they will be able to plan things out for you. What I would also say is have a look. There is a really good website. I'm sure we're allowed to talk about externals, but it's Money Supermarket, which is the website that's run by Martin Lewis, who's in the news quite a lot recently. And he has a whole section on that website about student finance and student deals. All right. And even things like student bank accounts, all right, are well worth looking into, not because not because you want to get huge access to unlimited credit facility or anything like that, but they offer some really good perks. And actually those banks like NatWest and Barclays, and I'm sure there are others, they actually have in-house advisors that will sit with students and make sure that you're not kind of going too crazy with your finances, or if the problem is the other side, making sure you're maximizing your budget in that regard. And they also, a lot of them, if you open a student account, will give you a free student rail card, or it might be Deliveroo vouchers every month, or there's always some perks to be accessed through that. So yeah, that would be my advice. There is, remember that you've got the in-house support, but you've also got some externals that are worth looking at as well.
Perfect. And John?
Yeah, my tips would be for that is that perhaps speak to people who've been there before, and maybe a crash course in learning how to cook a few budget meals. Be able to ask people about when you always go to visit the university you choose a couple of times before you arrive here, just to have a look around to see what's available, where to shop, those sort of things. It's really handy to be able to get to know the place you're going. And as I think Reece said, work together in wherever you choose an accommodation to share food where you can. But yeah, I think get some tips, go online. There's some brilliant advice out there, and just look around before you come.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I would say is that even whether it's a local thing or national, there are so many student discounts out there. You've just got to do a little bit of research to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck.
I will just to add on that one as well. When you start university, you'll be invited to something called the Freshers' Fair, which again every university does. It's kind of like a proper institution. You have to go to the Freshers' Fair, but every business in your local area, all right, will be there offering free or discounted products, whatever it might be. So you can go in there, get your Domino's vouchers for the year, KFC, McDonald's, whatever it happens to be. Obviously, you shouldn't be living off that all the time, but all right, you will get some really amazing deals at Freshers. So make sure you go as well as finding out about all the amazing societies and things that your university does. Sorry.
No, very valid point. I lived off some of those vouchers for a long period of time, especially during freshers. There are many things that can contribute to stress when moving from school or college to uni. I guess from a sort of mental health perspective, where can students go to access support? And John, let's start with you.
Yeah, and it's inevitable. You know, one in 5 of the students in Aberystwyth University disclose some form of disability, health-related issue, or learning difference. And on top of that, there are a whole range of other people where life has become really, really stressful. We know it. We know life can be quite challenging, especially if you've got your own support network that you've been used to for a number of years, and you're moving away from that, and you have that independency. So we know that it can be difficult. The people who are going to be able to hopefully provide you the support for life and be friends for life are the people you live with for the first time. So get to know them way before you arrive. So if you get an opportunity, if the university does allow you to know who you're going to be living with before you arrive, do that bonding before you arrive, get to know one another, be supportive. You could also, most universities have a residential support team. We have Res Life assistants here. They will be checking in on you just to make sure you're doing okay. Each department here in Aber, and I think most universities have a welcome peer guiding type support, and that's also extended to perhaps more experienced peer support mentors. We mentioned before about your personal tutor. They're there to get to know you. They're there to be there for you should you be struggling. You know, don't struggle in silence. You know, speak up. It can be challenging. It can be difficult, especially in the first few days and the first few weeks. You think, have I done the right thing? I want to be at home. Everything, my comforts are all at home. But you just hold on in there. Even if the first few days are challenging, the rest of your life is going to be exciting and fun. But the Students' Union, we're going to be talking about in a second, have some amazing clubs and societies, brilliant advisors, usually in those Students' Unions. Go and talk to them. You're going to be one of probably 2,000 or 3,000 new freshers that are going to be exactly the same position of feeling isolated and vulnerable and challenged. Talk to one another. Chat to the person who's in your class next to you in the lecture, in the seminar. Say how you're doing, because they're going to be feeling possibly in a similar position to you in those first few days. But then, of course, as you said, Sarah, we've got brilliant student support teams in all universities, whether it be money advice, whether it be wellbeing and mental health advice, whether it be advice around transgender issues, gender identity issues, whether it be advice around disability, mental health. We have advisors every shape and size to be able to support every and any issue that you might be facing. So my tip is reach out early if you think you're struggling a little bit.
Really good advice. Reese, what would you like to add?
I mean, I can't follow that up. I mean, that's, you know, anything to add to that really, other than, again, just to echo the fact that what John was saying, you know, that exists, that provision exists in every institution. Again, so, you know, Solent have in-house counsellors. If you know, you are suffering with, you know, your mental health, you know, don't suffer in silence. All right, you have the support there that is there to be accessed. Most universities, if they have university-owned accommodation, will have in-house, you know, there are people that live within the halls that are, you know, their entire job is just to make sure that people within the halls are kind of, you know, happy. We'll come around, we'll just double check, you know, everything is fine every couple of weeks, just to, you know, see how everyone is doing. You know, it's not for spying on anyone. It's there to just to make sure that you are, you know, enjoying university life as much as possible. All right, and actually, you know, enjoying it in the safest way possible as well. So, you know, please don't feel that by going to university, I know I've talked about at the start that it's this whole, you know, independent journey, absolutely, but, you know, it's not kind of independence in the sense that you are completely cut, you know, from any kind of support mechanism. They are there, you know, especially with something like mental health support. You know, the last 10 years alone has been, you know, such a huge strides kind of taken forward in terms of recognizing and supporting mental health within kind of, you know, vast swathes of society, but, you know, especially within young people. So yeah, please do not worry.
I think that's a perfect place to end. Please do not worry is the main takeaway from this session. I think there's always support out there. So I think both of our representatives will be hanging around in the uni hub for the next half an hour or so if you've got any individual questions that you would like to ask. I hope you found the session as useful as I have. We look forward to hearing about your next steps and enjoy. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.